Hey all, Alex here at your home of the Music Deep Dive, and today we'll be doing a review of the 1848 pamphlet by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, the Communist Manifesto. Karl Marx, born the 5th of May 1818 in Trier, Kingdom of Prussia, died the 14th of March 1883 in London. And Friedrich Engels, born the 28th of November 1820 in Barmen, Kingdom of Prussia, died the 5th of August 1895 in London. The two authors crossed each other's paths in Paris in 1844. Marx at this time was an experienced journalist who had started a newspaper in the city called the Deutsch-Französische Jahrbucher after his previous newspaper was shut down by the Prussian government, and Engels was a roving sort of socialist writer who'd had a couple of pieces published in Marx's newspapers at that point. Mutual admirers of each other's work, the two collaborated on several pieces and two books, 1844's The Holy Family and 1846's German Ideology. And it was during the writing of the latter that the two men moved to Brussels and started networking a collective of like-minded supporters of the working class based upon the ideas of the Jacobins that sparked so much of the French Revolution. The already adopted term for this ideology was, and continues to be, communism, and in 1847 the Communist League was formed. One of the first orders of business was, naturally, to draw up a credo, and, naturally, the task fell to Marx and Engels. The result was the Communist Manifesto, first published amidst the French Revolution of 1848, which in turn would lead to revolutions across almost every major European nation over the next couple of years. Now, this isn't a review in the traditional sense, as I alluded to at the beginning. I don't intend to make this video either a scathing indictment of communism or a ringing endorsement of it, and really this type of struggle and back and forth is why I don't anticipate making reviews of very many philosophical or political philosophy works. I have my opinions, of course, as does everybody else. However, this isn't the type of discussion that I'm really looking to generate in this space, and philosophical ideas are generally a bit beyond what I feel comfortable or educated enough to talk about. Really, the goal of making any sort of a video about this is to use this space to briefly acknowledge the Communist Manifesto as a work of literature and as a capsule of ideas, because its present-day relevance speaks to how well it works on both levels, at least to me. And I call this a capsule of ideas because it is certainly a capsule. If you want to read Marx's ideas, and these are predominantly Marx's, not necessarily Engels as much, in a way that is fully explained, you're better off checking out Das Kapital. I have not read Das Kapital yet, but I understand that this is like It is the quintessential bit of Marx reading. It's where he explains all his ideas and theories kind of in a more fully fledged form. The Communist Manifesto is meant to be a call to action. It is brief, it is fiery, and to the point. And given how relevant it is nowadays, almost 2 centuries later, it's fair to argue that no political pamphlet has ever been certainly more visible, but arguably no pamphlet has ever been more effective than this one right here. And I think the key to why this pamphlet has been so effective is its accessibility, because this is accessible. The communist idea is based upon the binary relationship between the bourgeoisie, or the ruling class, and the proletariat, or the working class. That relationship is all you need to know. It is a very simple to understand distinction that is justified by historical context in this work. Marx weaves it into here. But the pamphlet doesn't drown itself in that context and keeps its focus grounded in the ideas themselves. This, I think, is actually a weak point to certain works of political philosophy, where it really tries to justify itself by talking about what happened in kind of past regimes, past governments, that sort of thing. Very informational. The context is helpful, but it does sort of lose the thread of the ideas that are trying to be conveyed. And that's one area that the manifesto really succeeds in. And because this is a credo, this is a collection of ideas and such like that, and really trying to start a movement, the pamphlet paints a sort of idealistic final outcome after, unsurprisingly, in the theory that's being laid out here, the proletariat overthrows the bourgeoisie and dismantles the idea of classes, the idea of private property, and all that sort of thing. And this whole back and forth takes place over the course of 40 pages, at least in this specific edition. You have a lot of complex ideas in a very compact form, which makes sense because, again, this is a credo, this is a call to arms and that sort of thing. But it's interesting to see how effective and efficient the writing is here. I also want to briefly acknowledge the specific edition here as well, because to me it's hard to get more definitive and essential than the Penguin Classics edition, with an introduction, a lengthy introduction in fact, by Gareth Stedman Jones. Now, it is 5 times longer than the actual manifesto itself, but if you want the intellectual context behind Marx's writings and how they spread further, transforming into the viewpoint now known as Marxism and defining the communist struggles of the entire 20th century, this is an incredibly informational piece of writing, best consumed before reading the manifesto, not necessarily afterwards. And about that historical spread, I mean, the rise of the manifesto as a sort of essential piece of political philosophy is not entirely a product of its literary value. It's definitely more so a result of political developments that Marx contributed to, but didn't always define necessarily. But it does sit as a foundational text and really has always been treated as such in the context of communism. It just wasn't necessarily a mainstream piece of writing outside of the communist bubble until communism became a sort of mainstream idea. So I'm going to leave it at that because this is not a formal review, as I said, and I mostly want to reflect on this as a piece of history and as a piece of literature. I will ask you, the viewer, then, what do you think about the Communist Manifesto as a piece of writing, as a means of conveying ideas? Even if we don't get into the weeds of evaluating the merits of those ideas, do you think that Marx and Engels were convincing and effective in their goals, their, propaganda, shall we say? I think it holds up extremely well in that context, but I guarantee you that there are going to be many people out here with reasons for disagreeing with that. So let's go ahead and maybe have a nice little discussion about it. I'm sure it will be completely civil. I do recommend reading this, though. I've read this a couple of times now for different history and philosophy classes, political science classes that I took in college. And it's it's an interesting read. Again, outside of whatever ideas, it doesn't necessarily have to change the direction you live your life per se for you to appreciate it. I think that's kind of the camp that I'm in. It is a very fascinating read and obviously prompts a lot of discussion. So again, have at it. And that's it. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. As always, there are more reviews to come, more discussion videos to come. Tell a friend as well, please. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time right here at your home of the Music Deep Dive. This whole discussion, which I think appeals to some of people's baser levels of understanding in some way, all takes place over the course of 40 pages, at least in this specific edition. And this whole complex back and forth takes place over the course of about 40 pages, at least in this specific edition. Oh my God. Wow.